Hey future voters, it's me, Uma, and today on the channel we have a Senate candidate for West Virginia, a retired combat U.S. Army infantry officer, a pastor who traveled to the Peruvian Amazon, someone who served on the West Virginia House of Delegates, and a man who's currently pursuing his doctorate degree. I'd like to welcome Marshall Wilson to Before the Ballot.
I'm really grateful.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really grateful because before we start, I just want to say I am so connected to West Virginia. My grandpa and his two siblings immigrated there from India. My grandpa got his master's from West Virginia University. Both
Really?
he and my grandmother worked at Marshall University. I have so many, like my mother was born there. I have so many aunts and uncles and cousins there. And like I don't know if you know Saluja Law, it's a law firm there, but my uncle owns that. So, having a chance to interview you, it really means a lot to me. So,
Well, it means a lot to me too. And just to be upfront with you, I'm not from West Virginia. I grew up in Louisiana and Mississippi, yeah.
wow.
And then married a girl who lived in West Virginia. The only thing she asked of me was that I move to West Virginia. And I said, yes, ma'am. So that's how I got here.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yep. She's pretty great.
On that note about being born in Mississippi, let's just jump right in. I always say to know the politician, you gotta know the person. Otherwise, what are we here for? So
Right.
I would love it if you could tell me just a little bit about your childhood.
Okay, well, I was born at Parris Island. My dad was a Marine, so I was born in Beaufort, South Carolina. They raised mainly in South Louisiana and South Mississippi, Louisiana more than Mississippi. I enlisted into the Army when I was 18, was trained as a medic, an infantryman, a counterintelligence agent, and an interrogator. I was a Spanish and German linguist, and then I don't know about all that. I joke about how, people say, oh, you have so many interests. And I say, yeah, if only I could focus on one, I might actually accomplish something.
The fact that you know 3 languages is crazy.
Right. No. So anyway, I graduated college, was almost done. I did ROTC in college, Reserve Officer Training Corps, to become an infantry officer in the U.S. Army. And shortly before I graduated, I got a call from infantry branch. This is the part of the Army that manages infantry officers' lives. And I was told by the boss there that they would not give me an infantry commission because I was studying religion.
Yeah.
And so he said if I was going to be a preacher, he did not want to put me in the infantry. And so I had to change my major in my last semester of college from comparative ancient religions to, are you ready for this? General studies. But I graduated, I went on active duty, went to Fort Riley, Kansas, met a lady there, married her. We had 7 kids. Strangely enough, I became a Baptist preacher and then went to the Peruvian Amazon as a missionary. So I helped start churches and train pastors and teach theology and organizational management and sort of things. And so I had these 7 kids. We're in the jungle. I convinced a lady to forego an abortion. I offered to pay for her health care and all that kind of stuff. And then she left the kids with me. She had twins and left them at my house. So they're doing great, and I'm really glad that they get to live in West Virginia where folks are just folks,
Yeah.
I've lived all over the world with the Army and as a missionary and I like living all over the world, but we settled in West Virginia on purpose. We like it here.
Yeah.
And the primary thing that we like about it is the people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. Wherever you go, there are knuckleheads, and even the best of us is inclined to be a knucklehead on occasion. But the people that we live around, our neighbors and our friends at church and from work and from school, they're just good folks trying to do good things.
Yeah. Sorry,
Initially,
how old are the twins now?
they're 20 years old. Yeah. Hadassah is leaving for Army training here shortly. She enlisted into the West Virginia Army National Guard.
Dang, it really runs in the family. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
God help us all.
Thank your family for all their service. Oh my gosh.
Well, honestly, it's an honor to serve. So I had to come back to the States with 7 kids. I had 2 kids I had to leave on another continent in the care of a good friend. And I had no car, no job, no house, no idea how I was going to do this. And I went to St. Louis, where my ex-wife, or where her family lives, and I had to feed everybody, you know, and the only thing I'd ever done besides be a preacher was be a soldier. So I called up the U.S. Army Human Resources Command, and I said, hey, here's my Social Security number. You can look up my records and see what my qualifications are. Do you have anything for me? And the officer recruiter called me back a few minutes later, and he says, yes, we will take you as a 38-year-old infantry lieutenant. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the average lieutenant is, you know, between 23 and 25 years old. I was 38.
Wow.
So most of the guys my age were lieutenant colonels at this point, majors, lieutenant colonels, and I'm coming in as a lieutenant at 38 years old.
Wow.
But I had to feed the kids. So I made captain just a few months later. They gave me a company command, and then almost immediately we came up on orders to go to Iraq. So I had to figure out how to take care of the kids. Of course, Teo was taking care of the kids in Peru, and had the 7 kids here in the States, and they went and stayed with their mother in St. Louis. And then when I came home from Iraq, well, shortly before I left, I ran into the girl I dated in college 18 years before, right? And she says, how you doing? I said, well, I'm divorced. I have 9 kids. 2 live in the jungle in South America. I'm in debt up to my eyeballs, and I'm on my way to Iraq. And she said, oh, well, you know, would you like to have dinner?
And I've seen enough rom-coms to know how this goes. I know you made the switch from Republican to Independent in 2019, and now your website says you run for the Constitution Party. I don't think that's as well known in like the public eye. So, for the viewers, could you tell me a little bit like about what the Constitution Party is?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, there are a couple of great websites. The first one is constitutionparty.com, which is our national headquarters, and then we have the state headquarters in West Virginia, which I believe it is constitutionpartywv.com. So I was elected 2 times to the West Virginia House of Delegates as a Republican. I was a Republican because I grew up, when I was in high school, Ronald Reagan was president, and I watched him defeat the Soviet Union, and I thought, this guy understands America. That was not normal for where I was from, for someone to sign up as a Republican, but I did. And spent 30 years as a Republican, was elected twice to the West Virginia House of Delegates as a Republican. And then halfway through my second term, the state chairman of the Republican Party called me into her office, yelled at me for an extended period of time, and then told me, we don't want people like you around here. And I said, what does that mean? Are you talking about guys who talk too much, guys who have big heads? What do you mean? And she said, all you do is run around spouting the Constitution at everyone all the time. I left the Republican Party. I went straight over to the Secretary of State's office, because I was in Charleston at the time. And I went straight over there, and I said, I'm changing my voter registration. And one of the guys there said, well, what are you changing it to? And I said, Independent. One of their representatives contacted me a short while later and said, hey, you know, we understand you've joined us. We're very glad. We know who you are. Would you please run for governor as our candidate? And I said no about 4 times, and finally said, okay, you know, what does that entail? Well, what it entailed was I had to gather over 8,000 signatures to have my name printed on the ballot, because the party wasn't recognized by the state under West Virginia law. So we tried that. We failed. We came up short. And I told my team, I said, you're awesome. I love you. Thank you for all your hard work. We're done here. And they said, no, you're running as a write-in candidate. And so we signed up and actually got enough votes as a write-in candidate to get the party recognized. But the Secretary of State and the Attorney General both said the law doesn't apply to you in this condition, so we're not going to recognize your party. And so the Independent Party kind of came apart. So now Independent does mean unaffiliated in West Virginia, because the Independent Party doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. But a while later, I spoke with some members of the Constitution Party of West Virginia and was asked if I would consider running for governor under their. Right. So I did that, and we had to gather signatures once again because the party wasn't recognized. And I have a
Supposed to do
great
that by
team.
now.
Yeah, well, the team that I'm working with, they're all volunteers. They're just people who believe in the mission. I'm not going to say they believe in me because they know I can be a knucklehead sometimes. And we went out and we gathered more than enough signatures to get my name printed on the ballot in 2024.
Wow.
And then in the election in 2024, we got almost 3 times the number of votes required to earn ballot access for the party. So as of 2024, the Constitution Party is a recognized party in West Virginia and has ballot access. That means we can just put candidates on the ballot. And right now we have 11. As of today is the deadline to register candidates to run. And I'm actually in Charleston to register our last candidate. But we can just choose our candidates and then put them on the ballot instead of having to go through the signature process and all that sort of thing.
Oops.
Right. So we have 11 candidates. We're pretty excited.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
The Constitution Party is actually a national party, but it has to be recognized to gain ballot access in each individual state. And the different states have different laws. In West Virginia, it's that you have a candidate for governor who gets 1% or more of the total vote.
Wow. You learn something new every day. Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, I am going to transition a little bit here.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's talk policy. So
Okay.
you are very passionate about decreasing West Virginia's dependence on other states. How do you plan to do this?
Well, first of all, of course, we understand that West Virginia is not dependent directly on other states, but rather on the federal government, which draws revenue from other states through taxation and then spends it in West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And there are a couple things there. The first is that I would like for West Virginia to stop doing a lot of things that it's not supposed to do.
Such as?
Well, the purpose of government, according to the founding documents, is to secure these rights. That phrase is in the Declaration of Independence, and it follows right after life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that's the only thing government has any business doing. The West Virginia, the Republican supermajority in the West Virginia legislature and the Republican governor took $290 million from West Virginia citizens, right, through taxation. Taxation is effectively taking money from you at gunpoint because it's a law, right? Law takes the form, the syntax of law is comply with what I'm telling you to do or I will shoot you, right? Now, there are other steps involved. I'll fine you, I'll put you in jail, but sooner or later it comes down to physical threat, right? Yeah. The government will do bad things to you if you don't do what they tell you to do. Mm-hmm. So the government took $290 million from some of the poorest people in the United States of America and gave it to Bill Gates and the Chinese Communist Party via a boondoggle called Form Energy. So basically the idea is that there's a former steel mill, used to be a going concern, made a lot of money, hired a lot of people, and it shut down. And they wanted to use that site for Bill Gates and his backers in the Chinese Communist Party to build a battery plant. And the idea, the stated intent of this battery plant is to end the U.S. dependence on fossil fuels. We can argue about fossil fuels all day long, but West Virginia's entire economy is built on coal, natural gas, and petroleum. Mm-hmm. How much sense does that make? But we're literally taking $290 million from West Virginian citizens and giving them to these people to start this Form Energy. And, I don't know about you, but I don't think Bill Gates needs any of my money. And I'm very certain that the Chinese Communist Party doesn't. This is the sort of thing I'm talking about. Government shouldn't even be involved in business. The only time that government should be involved in any situation is when one person is depriving another person of the free exercise of their natural rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So if you've got a business that's poisoning people, government needs to get involved to protect those people's rights.
Yeah. You mentioned that West Virginia's economy is, heavily based on fossil fuels. West Virginia's unemployment rate is around the exact middle of the spectrum. It's 27th, I believe, out of 50, so exact middle. What are some steps that you take to increase the job market that your constituents would actually notice?
Okay, so first of all, going back to my earlier statement, government doesn't belong
in business.
Government, it shouldn't be involved at all. So first of all, the government programs that were put in place under President Obama specifically to shut down coal production, they were way out of line. We wouldn't have anywhere near the unemployment we have if our coal mines were running at full production. The next thing is that it is not the government's job to fix the economy. It's the government's job to secure the marketplace and then allow the people to make money, allow the people to provide services and goods to each other and produce wealth. Government doesn't produce anything. Government can only confiscate wealth that others have created through the investment of themselves, literally their time, their capabilities, their efforts, and their creativity, the components of their lives. So you can create wealth through the investment of the components of your life, and then the government says, thank you very much, that's mine now. Well, that's just absolutely wrong. The government needs to get out of the economy and secure the marketplace and then allow people to work.
Yeah. It'll create more opportunities in your state for what your state has.
Well, yeah, but the government doesn't create anything. Government can only destroy. It's only a weapon. And the only reason it should ever be used is to prevent someone or to punish someone from depriving someone else of their natural rights. The actual creation of wealth takes place in the free exchange between individual citizens. Now, those citizens might be a group of them that build cars at a plant, and then a group of them that buy them, or whatever. But it is the citizens, it's the people and their effort that builds wealth, not the government. The government is incapable of building wealth, and it needs to stop trying and stop lying about it.
One of my other questions is,
yes,
according to the World Population Review, West Virginia is ranked fourth in the highest percent of poverty. Louisiana is number 1, Mississippi's number 2, New Mexico's number 3. You're number 4. Is the same way you plan to create more jobs the same way how you plan to attack this? Like, what resources are you going to provide?
Well, yeah, like I said, it's not the government's job to create jobs. The government can't create jobs. All the government can do is take your money away and give it to someone else. That's all government is capable of doing. So what government needs to do is leave people alone and allow them to create. Now, again, we have to secure the marketplace. It means holding people accountable when they deprive someone else of the free exercise of their rights. So if I defraud you, if you and I go into business and I steal from you, or if I don't uphold the contract that we made, then that's when the government steps in and says, you are depriving Uma of the free exercise of her natural rights. You must be punished. You must make recompense. That's the only time they should be involved. The rest of the time, you and I need to build the economy. We, free citizens. And yeah, it's hard work. And yeah, there are going to be some bumps in the road, but it's the only way that works.
Yeah. Speaking of the government and economy, let's talk about healthcare. Almost 50 million people in the U.S. Rely on the Affordable Care Act, or for the viewers, ACA. What is your stance on the ACA? Because your current senator right now, Shelley Moore Capito, voted against it. Do you support the ACA? Do you not like it? And how do you plan to make healthcare more affordable for the everyday citizen? Okay, so back to the same arguments a while ago. Yeah.
First of all, the reason that there are 50 million people who depend on ACA, the Affordable Care Act, is because they were required to by law. When the government says you will sign up for these benefits, and then they tell the insurance companies you will provide these services, that's not a free market. And it doesn't work, and it's not sustainable. And the fact that 50 million people signed up for it because they were ordered to by the government doesn't warrant any sort of. You can't say that it's a good program because so many people have chosen it. They haven't chosen it. They've been compelled by the government to use it. So what we need to do is we need to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We need to open up the marketplace. We need to repeal the certificate of need. There need to be no certificates of need at all. That will bring down the cost of health care. And we need to allow the economy to grow so there's money in circulation. People have jobs. They can earn money. They can pay for their health care. They can pay for their insurance. And then to decrease the cost of insurance, we need to take off the requirements that health care provide anything other than what people are willing to pay for. So if you say every single healthcare program has to provide for abortion, well, frankly, only about half of the population will ever have any reference to abortion. I mean, whether they want it or not, the thing is there's only half the people who could actually make use of it, and only for a certain period of their lives. So it's asinine to make everyone pay for it. You have to take off those restrictions, those requirements, but the final restriction you have to take off the market is you have to allow them to sell their product across state lines. And once you have opened it up like that, the prices will go down pretty rapidly. If you get rid of the certificate of need, then you open up the marketplace for new providers. And as there's more competition in the marketplace, the cost for providing healthcare will diminish. And that's really the answer.
Okay, speaking of your predecessor, Shelley Moore Capito, she has served for 11 years and seen 3 presidential terms. Why don't you tell me a couple of policies you agree with and a couple of her policies that you disagree with?
Well, let's just start with the one big one that I disagree with. There was a proposal a while back to take away, to basically hold Trump accountable for the war in Iran and to tell him that he didn't have any business executing such a war. And she voted against that. She voted against holding him accountable and telling him that he didn't have any right to do it. So I'm a constitutionist. I'm also a combat veteran. And the thing, well, I'm just saying that that's the perspective I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So the simple fact of the matter is that the U.S. Constitution allows the people of the United States of America to declare war via their elected representatives in Congress. The executive branch does not declare war. There are certain times when war powers are allowed without a declaration, but those should only be when there is a direct threat against the United States. It's the only time that should happen. So all this military adventurism that we're doing, by the way, just for the record, Uma, I have a master's degree in national security, and I'm just about done with my doctorate in statecraft and strategy. So I've actually studied.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I'm just saying I've spent some time actually studying and thinking about these things, and I really want us to be good neighbors for all of the other nations on the planet. But we have a saying, which is basically good fences make good neighbors. And what that means is we are a sovereign nation. We need to handle our own business. And each other sovereign nation needs to handle its own business. And we need to stay out of their business, and they need to stay out of ours. Now, when one of those other nations attempts to deprive one of the other nations of their sovereignty, then that becomes a discussion for the whole neighborhood. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we do not have the right to use our military against another nation unless we, the people, choose to, because in America, the people are sovereign. The president is not, the Congress is not. We hold all the sovereign power. We decide if we go to war. So the last time the United States of America declared war was in World War II. Every
and obviously there was a big
war,
humanitarian crisis going on, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the thing is, we chose. We came together and said, we see what's going on over there. We believe that we should be involved. And that's the only time that it's ethical or moral or legal in the United States for our military to go to war is when it's at the behest, when it's at the command of the people. Now, of course, the executive leads the operation. They have to give it its focus and it's make sure that it's logistically supported and all that kind of stuff. But we, the people, through our elected representatives, declare war. And, you're talking to a veteran of one of those undeclared wars. And I'm not making any excuses for it. I had to learn. I had to study and understand how these things are supposed to work. So part of the deal is that if you don't declare the war, your government is at war, not your nation. And that's one of the huge problems that we've had. Whereas if the nation goes to war, so what this comes down to is I have 9 kids. Who has a right to decide whether or not one of my kids is going to go to war? And I've already told you one of my kids is going into the Army. I've got one who spent some time in the Navy. Who gets to make that decision?
Yeah, only you can. Like,
well, I mean, only the people. The government has no authority to send Americans off to die. We, the people, together decide whether or not we are going to go and whether or not we're going to send our children off to fight and potentially die. Government does not have that right. The short version is Shelley Moore Capito voted against holding the president to the constitutional standard in the war in Iran, excuse me, in Iran. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I'm sorry that I don't have the reference here for you. I should. But she has been rated, given an F, a failing grade, as far as her stance on securing the individual liberties of Americans. Whereas when I was a delegate, I got a 100% rating. She has another thing that she's done that I'm very unhappy about. She has voted in favor of so-called red flag laws, which basically says someone complains that they don't like the way that I cut my beard, and so they go to a magistrate and they say, this guy's a problem and he's got, firearms in his house, and police show up and take away my firearms based on that. In the United States of America, first of all, frankly, the government has no business knowing what you have in your house unless they have a warrant. And the complaint of someone else that they don't like the way you're behaving is not a warrant, right? Secondly, we have the right to keep and bear arms. Now, recently we had a guy walk into an In-N-Out Burger. I think it was in Iowa.
I believe Iowa, Ohio. I don't exactly remember, but I did read that news story, yes.
Yeah. So who stopped him? Another citizen with a pistol. Yeah. That's who stopped him, not the police. So the Supreme Court of the United States has stated, at least on 2 occasions, that it is not the job of the police to secure your rights or to protect your life or your property. It is their job to secure your rights as an agent of the government, and they do that by holding someone accountable when they infringe on your rights. So if someone is murdering you, it is not the job of the police to save your life. Now, they might. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if I'm a cop and I show up and someone's murdering you, I'm going to do my best to stop them, right? But their actual job, their mission is to find the person who murdered you and then hold them accountable, bring them before the magistrate. Whose job is it to secure your rights? To secure your life and your property? Yours.
Yeah.
And you can't do that if the bad guys are armed and you're not.
Speaking of firearms, gun homicide rate in the U.S. is 26 times higher than in the rest of the world. And if you aren't going to do it through regulation, which is fine, how are you going to get that down? But
first of all, we have to understand what homicide is. Homicide simply means a human being killed by another human being. And while that's always a tragedy, most of them are, frankly, people killing themselves. And people who want to kill themselves are going to kill themselves.
What I'm trying to talk about is not so much homicide as school shootings. I live 10 miles away from Parkland, from the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting. I have kids, I have friends who were impacted by that, and before I moved to Florida, I lived for 11 years in Connecticut, and even then I lived 10 miles away from Sandy Hook. I was in preschool when that happened. So, guns have been a very big source of fear for my generation because, in school, we have lockdown drills. We have these drills that make us, terrified of someone coming in and shooting us and not, it's terrifying. I'm not so much talking about homicide as I am about how are you going to protect us.
Sure, and that's very simple. How did the guy at In-N-Out protect the people who were there?
I'm sorry.
He shot the other guy.
Oh.
The guy who ended the shooting at In-N-Out did it by putting a bullet. That's how you protect them. Frankly, if the only real protection for good people from bad people is good people who are willing to do violence on their behalf. That's it. So here, I actually proposed when I was a delegate, when I was a state representative, I proposed that we not only have school resource officers, but of course, the sheriff's department only has so many officers, and they've got a lot of
Employees,
other things there. Yeah, but we do. We have a school resource officer in each one, and I've met most of them over the past few years, and they're good. They're good folks. We got a great sheriff right now, but the thing is, they can only be so many places at a time. Meanwhile, we have teachers who are more than capable of protecting the students if they're allowed the opportunity to do so. So I propose that our teachers go through a course, that they actually have an emergency drill set up so that, some of them could be evacuating the kids while others set up a defensive perimeter. And, when the guy shows his head, they put him down. Now, I'm not saying that's wonderful. I don't want those things to happen. But if the question is, how do you protect children from someone who wants to kill them? The answer is quite simple. You kill him.
I'm sorry, I think I'm a little confused. Are you suggesting that teachers bear arms in the classroom?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is how you protect children from someone who is intent on hurting them. You have adults who are ready, capable, and equipped to stop them. That's how you do that. Now, I've got a lot of friends who are teachers. I don't ever want them to have to do that.
Yeah.
But when somebody shows up and wants to hurt the kids, you need to have adults who are ready to defend them. Mm-hmm. And hiding them in a closet is not the most effective way to defend them.
Looking back on your previous term from for the viewers, 2016 to 2020 on the West Virginia House of Delegates, what is one, in hindsight's 2020, what's one thing that you would choose to do differently?
Honestly, there is only one vote that I gave in my time in the House that I regret. And I have run over it a million times, and I don't know how it could have played out differently. But I was played by the leadership, and I allowed it to happen. So here it is. Yeah. We had a bill brought before us by our then governor, Jim Justice, who is now one of our U.S. senators. Mm-hmm. And he was proposing that the state of West Virginia bypass the U.S. system for vetting foreign agents with whom we could do business. Now, I'm all for local control and liberty. But what he was doing was he was heading over to China, and he was talking about making deals with China, the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Communist Party, inside the state of West Virginia. And I had, in one of my classes for my master's program, I had written a paper for my emerging threats class on the Belt and Road Initiative, which is the Chinese Communist Party going into economically depressed areas and then doing wonderful things for them, and then giving them a contract that says, oh, by the way, if you don't pay this off within the terms, and we can change the terms at will, and the only place that you can challenge this is in the court in Shanghai, which, by the way, belongs to us, then we'll just come and claim this. So they would go and build ports in Africa. They'd build railroad stations, railroad lines, all kinds of things that would help these depressed areas out economically. And then they would come back and say, okay, that's ours now. And everything around it and all of the economic activity attached to it. That's called the Belt and Road Initiative. So I briefed this to the speaker and to the committee. And basically what it came down to was they allowed me to propose amendments that were critical to protecting West Virginia from that kind of thing. I proposed amendments that protected West Virginia from communist nations, from nations that are involved in narco-terrorism, from nations that are involved in, just straight up terrorism, nations that are involved in human trafficking, and said we will not do business with them. And I was able to put those amendments forward, but the other part of the deal was to have the time to build those amendments. I was required to offer my yes vote on the final amended version of the bill. Frankly, I wanted the bill defeated. I knew it wasn't going to be, and had a chance to put my amendments in to protect West Virginians from this sort of corruption. So it still sticks in my craw that I voted yes on the final version of the bill. But politics is the art of the possible, and I don't know how I would have gotten those protections any other way.
Yeah, well, we move forward. One thing I did want to talk to you about is that this page is for Gen Z. people like me. And my generation is so kind of turned off of politics because we're just growing up in an environment where fighting and yelling and I disagree with you, so we can't talk. Like that is the norm. You're the father of 9 children. How do you aim to guide the next generation into a space where we can clearly and respectfully communicate with people who have differing views than us?
Okay, well that is a fantastic question, by the way.
Thank you.
And really what it comes down to is the only way that people with differing opinions, differing agendas, differing principles and requirements and priorities, the only way that you can actually come together and work together and defend each other's rights is you have to agree to a certain set of principles. And those principles are very clear. You ready for this? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. As long as we can agree on that, we can discuss anything else. It's easy. It really is. If we are focused on ensuring that our rights are secured, in other words, I'm securing my rights, you're securing yours, and then because we're not morons, we can see that the only way my rights can ever be secure is if yours also are. And you understand that your rights can't be secure if mine aren't. Then what we have to do is defend each other's rights. And at some point, because we understand that, we start working to protect each other's rights, while at the same time disagreeing on whether or not there should be a law about whether or not your dogs bark too much, which, by the way, is actually a bill that came before us in the Judiciary Committee in the House of Delegates. They wanted to put people in jail for a year because their dogs bark too much. And I stood up and I said, come on, guys. Don't get me wrong, but that's something the two neighbors should work out between them.
Guys, let's walk in.
Right. But seriously, the only answer to bringing people together is having them focus on the core issues that really matter. It's this is a marriage and a military unit and a business. It's the same concept. The only way the organization is going to work is if we have core foundational principles that we do not ever compromise on, and that we apply evenly across the board, and we hold everyone to those standards, and we all submit to those standards.
And finally, if you were in an elevator full of Gen Z voters, what is your 30-second elevator speech?
Okay. Hi, my name is Marshall Wilson. I am your Constitution Party candidate for the United States Senate representing West Virginia. I am a retired combat veteran infantry officer. My wife is a retired Navy captain. She outranks me by 2 ranks, which is fine because I stand at attention while I do the dishes. No, really, it's fine. We have 9 kids. I'm not real sure how that happened, but some of them are adopted. And our entire purpose in life, now that we are retired, our purpose is to ensure that our kids can raise their kids in a free country. And the only way to do that is to make the government comport with the Constitution. The Constitution is the law that governs the government, and only when we govern our government will we the people be free. I will take a bullet to the face to secure your natural rights under the U.S. Constitution.
Wow. Great ending. Okay. At the end of every interview, I do like to do a little quick fire. These questions are not meant to trick you. Just say the first thing that comes to your head. Okay.
Oh my.
Favorite fruit?
Maracuya.
Ooh.
So I live in the Peruvian jungle, and there's this fruit. It's got kind of a hard rind on it, and it's got a bunch of seeds in it, but they're suspended. Anyway, I don't like to eat the fruit. A lot of people do. I don't like the texture of it, but we made a drink, a refresco, out of it that I absolutely love. Maracuya.
Maracuya. Wow, I've never heard of that before. I'll have to see if I can find it at a market.
There are also these little tiny pink bananas that grow in the Peruvian Amazon, and I like all bananas, but I really love these. Yeah.
Wow. Your favorite film?
Book of Eli. I had to look at Joe because it's his favorite movie too. We love Book of Eli. Denzel Washington is an amazing actor. The story is incredible. Gary Oldman is amazing. Mila Kunis does a great job. But just the story, what it's really all about. Of course, I don't want to to ruin the secret
Just
ending. I don't want to spoil it, but the story is deep and intense, and it's well told. We've watched it.
Experience.
Yeah, we watched it 47 times, and I would watch it 47 more. I really love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dedication. What's a smell that instantly brings you back to your childhood?
A smell. DDT. When I was a kid, we used to ride. Yeah. Like I say, I lived in the deep South, and mosquitoes were a real problem. And every evening during the summer, they would have this truck that drove down the street spraying DDT to kill the mosquitoes. And my friends and I would ride our bikes along behind it.
How much of that did you inhale?
Yeah,
It's okay. Your lungs are working perfectly.
I hope. Yeah, we'll see.
They are. Trust. What is a song that you'd want to play every time you walked into a room?
Oh. Okay, so there is one song that I believe, for a variety of reasons, is the greatest song ever written, and it's Amazing Grace. And a lot of people don't know this, but the story behind Amazing Grace is that John Newton, the guy who wrote it, was actually a slave ship captain. So he was bringing slaves from Africa to the United States to be sold. And then he discovered that he was living in evil, and he pursued God because he wanted to be forgiven. He wanted to be redeemed. And he ended up being a preacher in England, and basically telling the story about how he found redemption despite all of the corruption in his life. And he inspired, come on, Marshall, this guy's one of my heroes. He was a great parliamentarian in England who actually started the legislation that ended slavery throughout the English Empire. And I cannot believe I can't remember his name.
It's okay.
But anyway, John Newton, because of his great sin and because of the redemption that he was offered, was able to inspire this man who, brought about the end of slavery throughout the entire English Commonwealth.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah. So that, and then the actual words of the song, and there are a lot of songs I like. There are a lot of them that I think are great and everything, but this one, if it played every time I walked into a room, I would immediately be humbled. It would immediately remind me where I've come from, how far I have to go, and who it is who's responsible or capable of making me who I'm supposed to be. And it's not me. I just don't have it in me, but he does. And so that's the song.
Wow. What is a book that shaped you growing up?
A lot of them. I read nonstop.
Oh, same.
I still do.
I love to read. I'm a big reader.
Yeah, I've got a daughter who actually carries 3 or 4 books at a time wherever she goes, and might just randomly. And I say, "How do you read all of them at the same time?" And she says, "Well, I don't know. I just whichever one I feel like reading, I pick up and read."
That's what my mom says. She's like, "How do you keep track of what's going on?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just do."
Oh, you do that too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would read one and really enjoy it, but I'd get into it deep.
Wow.
I read a lot of Lewis. I'd have to say C.S. Lewis's Ransom trilogy, otherwise known as the Space Trilogy. But I read a lot of Lewis, Tolkien, Stephen R. Donaldson, Stephen R. Lawhead. I think that's pretty funny. Read a lot of science fiction, a lot of fantasy. I loved Orson Scott Card. But anyway, a lot of stuff.
Wow. So, you were a reader. It's hard to pick just one.
Yeah. I love reading.
Yeah. And finally, to round this off, what is your favorite thing about West Virginia?
Okay, this is going to sound like something a politician would say, but it is the straight up truth. The people. I mean, I love the terrain. Where I live, I live out in the woods. I love that. I love, sitting on my back porch, drinking my coffee and looking out over my valley while the mist comes up off of Back Creek. I love looking out the front door and there's a herd of deer in my front yard or turkeys wandering through I love that. But frankly, the people here, it seems to me that they are some of the sanest and most thoughtful people ever. And again, let me reiterate, all good people are capable of being knuckleheads. And all good groups of good people, tend to have a knucklehead or two in them, especially when I'm there, But the thing is, just in general, overall, I love hanging out here. There's a farm market down the road from us. It's called Orr's Farm. And the people who own it are just good folks, That's it. It's just, they're good folks. And like I say, I've been all over the world. And I've known decent people in a lot of places, but in West Virginia, especially in South Berkeley County, you cannot walk around. You can't go anywhere without running into 15 people who would change a flat for you or cover you while you maneuvered against a school shooter or, just good people. Yeah.
West Virginia's not a place, it's a people.
You're absolutely right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for appearing on Before the Ballot. I really enjoyed talking to you. I don't know if your son is still there, but bye. Bye, Joe.
Joe?
Bye.
Uma says bye.
Bye.
I really appreciate you. Thank you for your time. It's been a delight.
Thank you. I really appreciate
you.
it. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.